Hey, welcome to another episode of the Rob Report. I'm your host, Robert BOBTV Brown. Before we get into this segment, by the end of this video, I want you to do a few things for me. First of all, if you like the video, hit the like button. Please do. If you don't like it, hit unlike. It's okay. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel. Sometimes, as Jimmy Dole would say, you find yourself unsubscribed and you need to make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell right next to it so you can be notified when a new video is being dropped. Whoop, there it is. And more importantly, the super chat will be on for this segment. So if you want to donate toward the efforts of Bob TV, that's freely up to you. I do have a job, but any amount will help toward the growth of this channel. And more important, let us help you help us by introducing you to a program. There's a link down below that says Equal Justice for All. You're going to click that video link and there's some educational tutorial about a phenomenal program in America that is really making equal justice a reality for every citizen. So this program is phenomenal. The proceeds from you participating in the program will go back, 10% will go back into the Bob TV YouTube channel. So anyway, my name is Robert Brown with the Rob Report. Let's get into it. Hey, good day. Welcome to another episode of Rob Report. I'm your host, Robert Bob TV Brown. How you doing today? Well, it took me a while to get to this particular video, but this lady right here, every time I hear her talk, she pisses me off. And every time I try to shoot this video, I would get mad and I'll lose it. Oh, I would throw stuff. You know, I was kicking, throwing stuff, cussing. But I think I finally calmed down. Kamala Harris goes to the Essence Festival, and this was a while back, claiming that she got something that's going to close the wealth gap. It's funny, but it's not funny. Watch this.
Let us welcome Senator Kamala Harris.
Now, you notice he said you weren't the crowd. This whole thing was set up to try to prop up Kamala Harris. Number one, she's at the Essence Festival again with her sorority sisters, again with a lot of black women who are looking for somebody to represent them, somebody close to them, and this is the closest that they're going to get. But this whole thing is a setup. He wanted a crowd. He got her a crowd. He just admitted that on microphone. Now, people think Al Sharpton is the golden finger to get the black vote, that if he wave his finger as a seal of approval, every black person's going to sit there and vote for whoever Al Sharpton pick. That is a lie out of the pit of hell and 40 other hells in the middle of hell. He don't control no black power, no black vote. Matter of fact, I'm kind of disgusted at who he is right now. That's another story on where he's at today as a man, and always looking for high profile opportunities to fight for black justice instead of fighting for every black justice and make it high profile. But let's listen to Kamala Harris in this 12-minute speech to the Essence Festival.
Good morning.
Trying to sound black.
Oh Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, my heart is full. Good morning.
I know it's full of.
My beautiful sisters.
It's full of.
Good morning. Well, let me first start by congratulating Essence on this 25th anniversary of the Essence Festival. Congratulations. And it is 25 years strong. And of course, it is so good to be back in New Orleans. So I've got a limited amount of time, but I want to share with you a couple of things about my background and some ideas and plans that I have. But I do want to start by thanking everybody here, because this is a room full of leaders, and I cannot thank you enough for everything you do every day. So, about my background, I am a daughter of the Civil Rights Movement. I grew up in a family and in a community of adults who spent full time marching and shouting about this thing called justice. My sister.
All right, whoop-de-doo. Most every black person, or most of every person in color pre the immigration legislation was a daughter or son of civil rights movement. I'm a daughter and son of the civil rights movement. You probably on here are daughters and sons of the civil rights movement. So whoop-de-freaking-do. Whoop-de-freaking-do.
Sister Maya and I, we were raised by a mother who was all of 5 feet tall, but if you ever met her, you would.
Now, you talking about you and your sister was raised by your little mama. Mama, you trying to make it seem like your mama black. Go ahead and say who she is. Name her name. I think it's Shamalian Gamolian. Say her name. Tell us where she came from. Come on, Kamala Harris. Tell us where your mama came from.
I thought she was 7 feet tall. And our mother, she taught us the importance of a good education. She taught us the good old-fashioned value of hard work. She taught us, don't let anyone tell you who you are, you tell them who you are.
Well, that didn't mean color. That means stature. Okay? So your mama didn't tell you to tell us that you were black when you know you was Indian. Well, let me keep going.
And she taught us not only to dream, but to do. And she taught us to believe in our power to right what is wrong. And she was the kind of parent that if you ever came home complaining about something, our mother would look at you, maybe with one hand on her hip and with a very straight face, she would say, well, what are you going to do about it?
All right, so she going to say her mom, the little short, spicy East Indian woman, is going to put her hand on him and say, girl, what you going to do about it? Girl, what you going to do about it? What you going to do about it? No, I'm quite sure she would say, well, what are you going to do about it? Mind you, her mom, the picture she is trying to portray about her mom is she's just some so small, older, Mima type woman that was 7 foot tall in heart, but less than 5 foot. And she was in the back of the kitchen cooking food, chicken smelling good, and you come home complaining and she getting your stuff. No, her mom was a very well-known professor that did cancer research. She ain't walking around in no house gown with no wrap around her head with her hand on her hip saying, girl, you better get it together. But she's not going to tell you who her mom is. She didn't mention culture or anything else. But let's keep going.
So I decided to run for president of the United States.
That laugh.
And look, we all know there is a lot that is wrong with the current occupant of the White House. He says he wants to make America great again. Well, what exactly does again mean?
Now, let me stop you right there. Because she talked about her mom, but she never really mentions too much about her dad. And her dad is the Jamaican economist. She wants to tout her black card, but never mentions her dad, rarely mentions her dad. Truthfully, her and her dad has a contentious relationship. Her and her dad's relationship is kind of like Angelina Jolie and what's his name? I forgot his name. The Trump lover. She mentioned everything about her little small feisty mom, 5 foot in actuality height, but 7 foot in heart, putting her hand on her hip. telling them they need to get their act together. Yet at the same time, her mom was the East Indian chemical lab professor doing cancer research. But she goes into this speech and never mentioned her dad. But let's keep going and see if she's going to mention her dad.
Back before the Civil Rights Act? Back before the Voting Rights Act? Back before Roe v. Wade? Back before the Fair Housing Act?
So she's going to go on her tyrant to sound like she's pro-black and start going through every black legislation that black people fought for. When her mom and dad were college students at Berkeley, they wasn't on the East Coast catching the brunt of the dogs and the KKK. California KKK and KKK in the Deep South ain't the same. They wasn't going through the many people being hung up by the noose. But she's gonna make it seem like that. Let me keep going. She's doing whatever she can to pull out every ounce of black guts she got, which she ain't got much, in this speech to the Essence Festival.
Well, Essence, we're not going back. We're not going back. And in fact, it is time to turn the page, and it is time to write the next chapter in the history of these United States.
Not with you.
And I'd ask that we take a look at, and I urge everyone to read, the Black Census Project that has been headed by Alicia Garza, and look at that as our guide. So it's the largest survey of black people in America since Reconstruction. And it demands action.
Now, let me stop here again. Here she is. And I hope my black sisters are not dumb enough to fall for this. She's pulling up all these black pieces of legislation, these black initiatives, to kind of prove that she's on black people's side. Mind you, this is the same woman who took this white supremacist law of Joe Biden and ran black people into prison by the droves. But she want to deflect or throw people off her real record and talk about other records in black history as if she had something to do with that, and she's going to bring the next major black piece of legislation to America. But let's listen to her. Let me stop running my mouth. Let's listen to her.
Recognizing the many facets of black life that must be addressed. And in my opinion, it is a guide to right what is wrong in America. So you know how sometimes people will say, and they say it certainly to me often, because I was, of course, the first black woman to be elected DA of San Francisco. I was the first black person.
All right, so here we go. She's going to talk about the first black to ever do this. The first black to ever do this. This is what pisses me off because of her. Because she never in her life placated to her black side. Again, questionable black side, because again, her dad was Scotch Irish and Jamaican. But remember, Jamaicans come in every color. There's a lot of black Jamaicans, but that doesn't mean every Jamaican is black. 25% of that, 25% Scotch Irish, but majority of 50% of her, part of her, is East Indian woman. I mean, East Indian women, from India. And she never, ever really pushes that. She talks about her mom in the speech, who was a full-blooded, powerful Indian woman from a high-class elite society in India. She started her speech off talking about that Indian, powerful, smart, intellectual woman. Did not talk at all about her Jamaican daddy, but yet she wants to go out here and talk about how black she is. It's called bob and weave and deflect. She's lying through her teeth to get the black vote, but when you check her heritage, she's going around here talking about she was the first black this and the first black that and the first black that, but she wouldn't even talk about her black dad. Actually, I always try to keep it real. Her interracial dad. Scott Irish, Jamaican. Now, it's a whole video by itself that I may cut this into, but let's keep going.
Person to be elected Attorney General of California. Wrong in America.
All right, so here she is. She's doing her best to talk to black. She's doing her best to got that black stand. I wouldn't even be surprised if she moved her neck, move that head like she about to tell you something. Even my black sisters don't do that no more. When the last time you seen a black girl get mad and move that neck around like a chicken? You know, they used to do that back in the 70s. Good times. Thelma used to do that. Valona used to do that. Black sisters don't be moving their neck like that no more. If you say something wrong to a black girl, they'll just slap you in the mouth, cuss you out. They ain't got to be doing no head movements like she's doing right now. And they ain't got to be doing no stands. This is called pandering. Pandering to get a vote. Be yourself. Be who you are. You started out talking about your phenomenal East Indian mother, but you made it sound like she was a black short woman from down south. Boy, this is why I hate politicians, man. I hate them. I really don't like them. It really takes a lot for me to really gravitate to a politician. Let alone gravitate, get me to actually support them and actually campaign for them. It's hard because I'm not a slut voter, and I'm not the type of person that you're just gonna throw up somebody and make and you spin this narrative of how great they are without me checking them out. I'm gonna check them out. I'm gonna check their record. I'm gonna check their history. I'm gonna check their background, what they did in the past, what they're doing now, what they plan on doing in the future. I'm gonna check their record, and I'm gonna check who they are. I'm gonna check out the family. And that's why I can boldly, confidently say these things and could care less about what nobody else say because I've checked her history. She is a fake and a fraud. And as Huggy Bear said, part-time broad. This so-called black woman takes a white supremacist policy and run more black men in jail, but yet she want to act like she going to do something for black people. Yeah, you did something for black people. You ran them in jail in California. You used and abused them. One brother supposed to have been off of death row, and she going to keep him on death row all to try to prove a point. She only allowed body cameras on special agent, wouldn't allow the body cameras on regular police officers. Denied them that. If you smell like you got weed on you, she gonna lock you up. She threatened to put parents in jail because their children didn't, the children probably skipped school or left school, as if that's the parent fault. Not understanding the pressures of gang violence during that time, and oftentimes you had to not go to school just to stay alive or you get killed. But she gonna throw your parent in jail. Yeah, she never had children a day in her freaking life. And she don't know what it is to be a parent and to deal with struggling with your youth growing up, and then your youth living in Oakland, California, all the way down to South Central LA and Compton and things like that, dealing with gang violence. But yet you gonna throw the parent in jail because the child not showing up for school. You don't know why that child not coming to school. But you for black people. But yet she gonna talk about how she's the first black. You ain't the first black jack. The first East Indian woman to do that. Be who you are. Be yourself. This is why I cannot trust her and won't ever vote for her, because she can't even be true to herself. How the hell you gonna be true to the American people? Get out of here with this stuff, man. Let me keep going.
So you know how sometimes people will say, and they say it certainly to me often, because I was, of course, the first black woman to be elected DA of San Francisco. I was the first black person to be elected Attorney General of California, only the second black woman to be elected to the United States Senate.
See, she's saying this stuff in front of a bunch of black women, and most of these black women ain't buying it. I mean, politicians think we as black people are stupid that we're not going to really find out who you are. You notice there's no arousing cheers by her mentioning as a black woman, she did this and then she did that. You know why? Because most of them know she didn't do that as a black woman. She did it as a proud East Indian woman. The only time she's pulling the black card right now is because she's trying to get the black vote. You know the only dumbest thing that probably a Trump this is Trump trying to talk black talk. Now we know that fool ain't black, and we know he hate black people. At least poor black people, middle class black people. He loves him some wealthy, rich black people. Oh, but don't let them get too much more money. Don't let them get more money than he get. Then he ain't gonna like it. But here we got Kamala Harris talking about her black achievements. Get out of here.
In the history of our country. And so, people will often come up to me and they will say, well, Kamala, talk to us a little bit about black people's issues. And I look at them and I say, you know what? I am so glad you want to talk about the economy. I am so glad you want to talk about health care. I am so glad you want to talk about the racial wealth gap. And
racial wealth gap mean the only thing that's going to close that is reparation, but you said you're not for that.
Talk about national security while we're at it. And let's talk about the dreams people have for our children. So let's talk a little bit about all of that. Let's start with economic security. The Black Census shows us that in the last year, nearly half of black families in America said they did not have enough money to pay a monthly bill. It found that a third of black families cut back on food because they could not afford it. And for every dollar white men earn, black women in America earn 61 cents. So we must right what is wrong with the economy and pass my LIFT Act, which will give every family making under $100,000 a year a tax credit that they can collect at up to $500 a month.
So she's going to go to the Essence Festival and push this LIFT Act crap. She's going to offer $500 a month to all people, not just black people, but she's going to act like she's only offering this to black people. Now, had she said, I'm offering this to the black community only, that would help us close the wealth gap, but she's offering it to all people. All people. Now, Andrew Yang, an Asian man running for president, is offering $1,000 a month. It's called UBI, Universal Basic Income. It's something Dr. King talked about back during the Civil Rights era. But no, you don't deserve, and he's saying doing that for all Americans, including black Americans. Now, which one do you think, sister girl? If anything, sister girl, you should be offering the black community alone $1,000 minimum a month to Trump, what the Asian guy that's running for president as a Democrat is offering all communities. You're trying to sit here to make it seem like at the Essence Festival that your $500 tax credit is only going to go to black people when it is not. It's going to everybody, which means the wealth gap is not getting closed. The only way you're going to close the wealth gap is you keep white people at the same level and you bring black people closer to that level of white people. You don't lift white people up and then lift black people up. The bottom line will still be at the same level, them having a higher wealth gap than we do. But no. She's trying to pull a fast one over the black sisters at Essence Festival. And you probably got some black brothers that think they're sisters at the Essence Festival. But she's trying to pull one on people at the Essence Festival, and black people ain't buying it. But let's keep going.
Economists have described it as the most significant middle-class tax cut we've had in generations.
What economist said that? I hate when people say economist said this, expert says that. Who Who? I need to check them out. See, people sit there and hear that. Central Intelligence says this. The intelligence community said, what intelligence? You know, there's so many intelligence community out there. Which one? I want to know so I can check them out. Because you could be telling me anything. You could be pulling any kind of dumb stuff out the crack of your behind, throwing it at me and expect me to catch it. I ain't trying to catch nobody crap out of their behind. So, you can't tell me expert says this, economist said this, intelligence agency said this without you telling me who in that community is saying this. But yet, we got sisters hearing her tell us experts saying this, but not mention who the experts was. Folks, y'all got to stop buying that stuff. They be trying to pull a fast one on you.
We must right what is wrong and take action on equal pay.
We must right what's wrong and take action on equal pay. No, we must right what's wrong and close that wealth gap by offering reparations to black people. That's the wrong that need to be done right. You talking about equal pay between men and women, white men and women. I'm talking about equal pay between blacks and white in general. But you don't want to talk about that. Get out of here. And you're supposed to be black. You had the Black Festival, talking like you're black, starting off with your East Indian mama that you're not going to tell everybody that she's East Indian, my little East Indian mama. And you're not even talking about your Jamaican daddy, but you're talking about your East Indian mama without mentioning that she's East Indian. And then you're sitting here talking like you super black, like you Pam Grill somebody. But you're talking about a program that's going to help all other people but black people. And you tout it as if it's gonna actually close the wealth gap between blacks and whites. No, it's not.
With my plan that puts the burden on corporations not working women to prove that they've been paid equally for equal work. We must right what is wrong and close the teacher pay gap to give millions of teachers, the vast majority of whom are women, a raise. And I say to them, so you want to talk about black issues? Let's talk about health care also. So,
you haven't mentioned one major black issue. You mentioned the issue with every race. Teacher pay, that's an issue with multiple colors. Unequal women pay, that's not just happening with black women, that's happening with all women. You've yet to mention anything about black issues at the Eston Festival where 90 to 95%, I would say 99.9% are black women at that festival, but you haven't mentioned not one black issues, but you're trying to tout these things as if they're black issues. Folks, these are all people issues that she's trying to tout as a black issue. In her program, she's trying to tout as a black-only program to fix that issue, and that's why you need to vote for her, the so-called black candidate in the race. Don't be falling for the banana in the tailpipe, and as my man Tim Black said, don't let nobody take your cornbread.
Nearly 1/3 of folks in the black census said they put off seeing a doctor because they could not afford it. We know that black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth. And we know that black communities across this country are dealing with water that is not safe to drink. We must right what is wrong with public health policy and pass Medicare for all in this country.
Now, recently, since she mentioned Medicare for all, she's backed away from a true Medicare for all. She's still believing to have a plan where corporations can make money off people's sicknesses, when we're trying to move to a moderate plan that most countries have, including places like Israel, Australia, England, Russia, Canada, and any major company has, where you get it at the point of service and it's come out of our tax dollars. But let me keep going.
And we must right what is wrong and pass my maternal mortality bill so that black women in America are taken seriously when they walk in that doctor's office, in that clinic, or in...
You listen how hard she's trying to throw in the black sister girl accent. And yet, soon as she get from this stage, she gonna go to the white Jewish husband and talk just as proper as she can. I just had to do that because my black sisters out there, they're not gonna believe me if I talk like this. Get out of here with that stuff. She's pointing the finger. She's trying to throw the neck. She's trying to take that black mama stance where she stand hard on one leg and tap that toe on the other leg like she pissed off. Boy, I tell you, man, these politicians are something else, man. I don't care who it is, man. Bunch of frauds. That's why they call them politicians. Because if you separate the word politics, it means many bloodsuckers. They're trying to plant their fangs in you and suck up all the juice, blood they can out of you. Not this brother. It ain't going to happen to me. It ain't going to happen to you because you guys are wise, conscious, intellectual voters. You're not slut voters. You don't just give it up. Hey, let me tell you something. I recently went out with this young lady. Boy, she was trying to give it up quick. I'm like, God dog, let me shake your hand. Let me get a drink or something, boy. God dog, you think I'm interested in somebody gonna give it to me that quick? I got morals. At least let the night finish. You're ready to go home. As soon as I buy you one drink, she ready to go home. And some people are just like that with their votes. You just mentioned one policy, you ready to give it up and not even check out the details of that policy. But let me keep going.
In that hospital. We must right what is wrong and finally treat access to clean drinking water like what it should be, a fundamental right.
Go ahead and talk that talk, sister girl. Talk that talk, Kamala Harris, with your non-black self.
What is wrong? Let's deal with the racial wealth gap in our country, which is why today...
All right, now this is the part where I get serious and stop the joking around. This racial wealth gap is not a joke. Now, white America came here as immigrants. They were actually fleeing from what they call a brutal government in England. They wanted independence and they moved here to get it. Mind you, there was people that were already here, Native Americans. Of all colors, most of them dark-skinned Native American, I mean almost black-looking, here on the eastern coast of the United States, and the southern coast of the United States, such as Seminole and the whole 9 yard. Ponce de Leon came here way before. Landed in St. Augustine, and he's seen black indigenous Indians. Black. As you go further into the United States, or what they call Turtle Island, they begin to become lighter. But the origins is still black. White society, when they first came to this country, they couldn't do much. They couldn't even survive if it was not for the indigenous people helping them, black indigenous people. Yet they had a vision to start their own, to build a new life here in America. Didn't know that they was going to use genocide and murder to try to do it. They wanted to build something just as beautiful as England, but they wanted to do it on the back of conning and scheming Native American Indians, importing black slaves in here to do the hard labor to build this country with their so-called blueprint for American exceptionalism. Whether it's a blueprint, red print, white print, Black people broke their backs to build this country into the prosperous nation that we are. People from all over the world came here to achieve the so-called American dreams, and they got special perks that these slaves couldn't get and still don't get to this day. These descendants of slaves. After brutalizing us, raping us, dividing us, this dividing family thing didn't start with Trump, and it probably ain't gonna end with Trump. No, this dividing kids from their parents was going on back then when it came to the slaves. We were being divided as soon as we got off the boat. We were being divided. Yet we build this country into one of the most wealthiest countries in the world. We the one build the crops. We the one build these fabulous buildings. And a lot of these systems that we use, and such as the traffic system, you name it, we did it. And then when it was time for the Emancipation Proclamation, they promised to let free people go, let free the slaves, but not just freedom, but give them something with the freedom. It's kind of like Israel. When the children of Israel was free from Pharaoh, Pharaoh let them go with wealth and riches. He gave them what they call reparations. For all the hard labor that I made you do to build this beautiful place called Egypt, if you're leaving and starting your own land, we're going to give you something for it. Now, mind you, that once they made that agreement and they did start to leave, Pharaoh had to change of heart and try to go back. But we already know the story on that when he drowned trying to chase them down. But the bottom line is, at least Pharaoh let them leave with reparations, a payment for the hell that he put them through. And the generals and the general and the president tried to make that happen, but yet they didn't do it. 40 acres and a mule, never gave it to us, or gave it to a few people, but didn't give it to majority of the slaves. We had to scratch and build on our own, and we built prosperous communities, and they got jealous of that and burned that down. Anytime we tried to come up, they crapped on us. Pretty much destroyed our communities. Oh, I've yet begun to tell you about the different horrible acts of genocide done in the United States alone. We always talk about Jewish genocide and genocide going on all across the world. We've yet to talk about the different genocide that happened in the United States. I could just mention one called the Devil's Punch Bowl, when tens of thousands of black sharecroppers, former slaves, were murdered and dumped in a pit. And they buried the pit and grew peaches on top of that. And we don't deserve reparations. And you want to make a big issue about reparations. Yet at the same time, to this very day, the wealth gap has not closed because certain elements in government will not allow it to be closed. And here she is, she getting ready to talk about closing the wealth gap with some old funky program. But it's just, man, some pisses me off. But let's listen to it.
Here at the Essence Festival, I am releasing a new plan to start closing the wealth gap. And here's how it works. So a typical black family has just $10 of wealth for every $100 held by a white family. So we must right that wrong. And after generations of discrimination, give black families a real shot at home ownership. Historically, one of the most powerful drivers of wealth in our country. So I will remove the barriers that black Americans face when they go to qualify for a home loan.
All right, so that canceled everything. Her tool for closing the wealth gap is removing the barriers to stop that's stopping black people from getting a freaking loan. 40 acres in a mule was not a loan. That was a debt owed to us. If anybody, we don't need a freaking loan, Miss Harris. We need a debt paid to us. See, a loan requiring us sooner or later to pay a debt back to this government. So you coming up with a freaking home ownership program is basically making it easier for us to get in debt and us to possibly pay that debt off or pay it off without the interest rates. That is not closing the wealth gap. That's actually adding the wealth to the opening of the wealth gap. But let's continue to listen to her. How in the hell you gonna close a wealth gap by giving black people loans? No, you close a wealth gap by paying black people money that's owed to them. That's how you close a wealth gap. For every $100 that white people have right now, blacks should have $100. That's how you close a wealth gap. Not giving a loan for $100. Get out of here with this mess. But let me keep going. And I got to hurry up. It's 4:13. I got to go to sleep.
I will strengthen anti-discrimination lending laws and implement stricter enforcement. And I'll invest through the federal government $100 billion to put home ownership within the reach for those who live in redlined communities, and it would help up to 4 million families with down payments and closing costs.
So Kamala Harris is about to get a little cheered about some women who just don't understand how she just hoodwinked them. She want to give $100 billion in loans for us to get started our own home. That is not reparations. That is not closing the wealth gap. What you do is you take that $100 billion and you give it to the black community and let them buy their own house without a loan. That is how you close the wealth gap. So who in the hell how oh Lord, forgive me. How dumb you think we are to really think we're going to buy this bull crap? This is an opportunity for you and your people and you and wealthy elites like you and your husband to get rich, all black people. Because who owns a lot of property here in the United States? Especially here in New York, especially in Brooklyn. Who owns most of the property here? Who's going to be selling the property? Yeah, you guessed it. Your husband peoples. This is the most this is one of those. Oh God. When I think there's no other reason for me to not vote for her, she come up with something to one up. She add more to the reasons. So you think black women gonna be stupid enough to listen to this and fall for you giving us a loan to close the wealth gap. Sisters, how we need to close the wealth gap? Even $100 billion that she's proposing in home loan to give us home ownership is still a slap in the face. That should be the right now the federal government owe the black community $10 trillion in debt for reparations. Trillions. And then she gonna come up here with $100 billion in loans to give you to get a house. And that'll close the wealth gap. I almost cuss. Let me keep going, then I'm done.
And by taking...
You notice the claps are not exuberant. You got to understand the women at Essence. The women at Essence are smart, intellectual, ain't going to be falling for no foolish tricks. These are sisters that done been through hell and high water with us Negroes. with our federal government and with these elitist black women, especially those who totally detach themselves from the black community. Kamala Harris is not detached. She is not attached to the black community. Heck, you listen to her own father. Her own father says she never spends time. She don't spend that much time with the other side of her family. She spends most of her time with her East Indian family. Again, she never grew up in the black community. She grew up in Canada in a upper echelon, elite community, elite Indian, East Indian community. But I digress. Let's let her finish.
These steps, we can shrink the wealth gap between black and white households by at least 1/3.
1/3? 1/3. 1/3. Not half. Not 75%. By at least 1/3, she says. Home ownership will close the wealth. You can't close the wealth gap with a home ownership through loans. Home ownership through reparations, by giving black people the money that they deserve, that will close the wealth gap. This loan stuff, loans will never close a wealth gap.
But we cannot bridge the racial wealth gap just by addressing historical inequities. Although we must do that, we also have to write the next chapter.
In other words, I'm going to take off my pants on my pantsuit, aka Hillary Clinton, pull down my panties, and piss on your black agenda, and you going to get this one. In other words, we know y'all out here hollering ADOS, we want reparations, no black agenda, no vote, and you going to take this, and I want your vote. So I'm going to squat down and piss on your reparations, and you going to take this instead. Now, Kamala Harris, that ain't working. Because we got just as many sisters that can put on that have a real sister girl attitude, a real black attitude, that has had enough of this so-called peddling from the Democratic Party, talking about what they gonna do to help us, and it's really not a help.
Black Americans were excluded in our country for years and generations from participating in the first industrial revolution.
And you know this, and you think home loans is going to help? You think home loan is going to help, and you know this? You know what we went through? Now, you didn't know, your daddy didn't tell you what we went through because your daddy is an immigrant. Your mama didn't tell us what we went through for 300 years because they're immigrant. They only can tell you the stories from the history book. But we got parents that's been here, lineages. They know. We got some grandmas still alive can tell you what happened from what their parents told them. But you ain't got that. So what you doing is you crapping on every American descendant of slaves that's standing in this Essence Festival with your foolish, dumb, ignorant plan to so-called close the wealth gap. No, what it is your plan for you and your rich buddies to get home loans out there to get rich off black people. And we ain't buying it.
And the wealth that generated. Now, with the technological revolution, we must ensure that everyone can participate in the wealth it creates. And to do that, I will invest in our HBCUs. I am a proud graduate of Howard University.
Now that'll get some thunderous applause because most of this stuff is sponsored by HBCUs. I ain't got nothing against HBCUs. Personally, I don't. But I need HBCUs to teach real black history and not the one that white society tells us. That's my only problem with black HBCUs and black elementary schools and middle schools and high school, because this government do not teach the entire history of America. They teach their history. They call it history for a reason. HIS, pause, and just add story.
I will invest in our HBCUs the resources they need to develop world-class STEM programming to ensure that our students have a real opportunity to shape the technological revolution. And here's the thing. Those of us who are proud graduates of HBCUs know. HBCU, you know, HBCUs
trying to get that black talk.
Nearly 1 in 4 students who earn science and engineering degrees. They are our future. And in the coming weeks, I'll announce new investments to support black entrepreneurs and business owners by increasing access to capital and credit.
There we go again. In a few weeks, she's yet to do it now. She's dropping in the post. She was going to announce business loans with increasing capital and credit. Again, giving us capital, giving us credit is still a loan. Black people are not asking for loans. Black people are, well, majority of black, let me put it this way, because we got all different types of black people. Now, that's good for people who were not, lineage does not come here. The loans, the credit things, that's good. The ability to pay it off is even better. But when it comes to American citizens and say, we don't want a freaking loan to try to close this web gap. We want what's rightfully ours. Give us that, we'll start our own business. Give us that, we'll buy our own house. Give us that, we'll probably move back to Africa. Give us what we deserve. Give us that, we'll invest in HBCUs. We don't need the government trying to give you the loan to put it. Let us black people invest in our own colleges. See, this whole thing is bizarro. It's twisted. She got people thinking this is a good deal when it's not. It's anti-black. Giving us what everybody else have does not help lift the black community up to a place where everything is equal. We have a gap that has to be closed, and what you're proposing is not a gap. If anything, it's something to widen the gap, but let me keep going.
So in closing, by taking these challenges on, we can close that gap. And that not only lifts.
Not the way you're talking about closing the gap. Start with this left, start with this homeowner program. She's going to make you think that all this is a deflection, a huge Democratic plot to deflect you from the issue of reparations. We'll give you anything but what owed to you. We'll give you a loan. We'll give you credit. We'll give you capital. But we won't give you what's owed to you. And if you vote me in, I'm going to give you some extra benefits, some extra incentives. But yet, at the same time, you're still going to get at the white people. You're going to tell me you're only going to do this for black people? No, Kamala Harris even just mentioned to you that I ain't going to just do something for black people.
Lifts up Black America, it lifts up all of America.
And she said it. This is lifts up all America. This don't just lift up black people. This lifts up all America. When you hear that talk, where it lifts up all America, that means if all America is being lifted up to a higher plane, we're still at below. We need to be lifted to equal, then lift everybody up. Bring black people up to equality of whites, and then you lift us all up. But you don't lift us all up at one time because there's still a gap. I'm almost done.
So, Essence, join me as we right what is wrong and write the next chapter of history in our country. Because black women know, we know America's story has always...
Black people know. Then she throw in, we know.
It's been written by those who can see what can be, unburdened by what has been. And just think, less than 60 years ago today, Ruby Bridges needed federal marshals to escort her to school in New Orleans. And today, Mayor LaToya Cantrell is the first woman and the first black woman to lead this city. The fight of black women has always been fueled and grounded in faith and in the belief of what is possible. We have always built the future that we can see and believe in and fight for. And that's why Sojourner spoke. It's why May flew. It's why Rosa and Claudette sat. It's why Maya wrote. It's why Fannie organized. It's why Shirley ran, and why I stand here as a candidate for President of the United States.
And why you're not going to be president. There you go, people. Kamala Harris goes to the Essence Fest. Now, it took me a while to come up to this particular video. But the more I saw this video, the more pissed off I got. Here I am. I'm thinking that this so-called black woman is actually going to do something for black people when she's actually harming black people again. Because that's just what she do. She don't help black people, she harm. Whatever way capacity she can. When it came to her being attorney general, lock him up. DA, lock him up. Prosecutor, lock him up. And the only reason people are pushing her, like Charlemagne and the God, things like that, because they think she could take that prosecutorial experience and put Trump in a position where he can get locked up. When you know the history of how she got up the ladder. Yeah, she's going to come to the Essence Festival to try to hoodwink all our beautiful sisters into thinking that she's going to do something to close the wealth gap and that we need to support her to help close the wealth gap. Oh, yeah, I got something. Forget about that reparations stuff that y'all talking about. Get that mess out of here. We don't want that mess. Get out of here. I got something better than that. To remind me of Eddie Murphy and his auntie talking about, his mama talking about, I got something better than a Big Mac. I got something better than an Egg McMuffin. Better than an Egg McMuffin? Yeah, his mama gonna cook some toast and a big old giant sausage burger and put an egg in there, and it's all dripping all on his hand, and his friends joking him. He said, there ain't no Egg McMuffin. And that's what she doing. She doing an Eddie Murphy mama moment. I got something better than an Egg McMuffin. I want an Egg McMuffin. I want reparations. It's owed to us. I don't want a loan. I don't want a capital. I don't want credit when it comes to us investing in our own community, investing and building something for us. I don't want that. Had I been in a position where I'm coming into this country like Nigeria or, Bahamas or something like that, yes, credit and home, that is good for me in that particular area. But American descendants of slaves who helped build this country into the wealthy country that they were, but never got the payment to say thank you for that. No, loan ain't gonna get it. Credit ain't gonna get it. And that ain't closing the wealth gap. That is opening it up and making things worse from us. It's a slap in the face, and shame on you, Kamala Harris, for trying to hoodwink my sisters and brothers to make us think that you had something to close the wealth gap. It's a gap, all right. We ain't buying it. We ain't voting for you. Nice try. But Al Sharpton would say, we got you. We ain't falling for your bull crap. Folks, don't let these politicians do this stupid stuff. Make you think. They're trying to do everything but give you, especially black Native American descendants of slaves, they're trying to give you everything but the real deal that's going to close the wealth gap. The real deal that's closing the wealth gap is in the tune of $1 trillion that you owe the American descendant of slave community. We don't want your funky loans, credit, or none of that. That is for people who are coming in. That's all right for them. But no, you owe us. And we want our payment. And we want to invest in our own schools. We don't want you giving us money. We want to take our money that you owe us and invest in our own housing and redevelopment. We want to invest in our own businesses. We don't need a loan. We need what you owe us so we can do it. And we are not getting off this horse until we get it. And as my man, Hangman Page from AEW say, it's time to do some cowboys. And that's exactly what we're going to do.